Dan Spots with the Dalles Area Chamber Community Affairs. Today is Thursday, the 23rd. I wanted to double check that because I managed to get the date wrong last week, which was embarrassing. Our guest is Julie Reynolds. She's going to be talking about a hidden gem we have in this community, and that is St. Paul's Chapel on Union Street by City Park. Beautiful historic building. Survived the Great Fire of the late 19th century. And we're going to turn it over to Julie in just a bit. But first off, we're going to start with round the table introductions and organizational updates. So, and I'm keeping an eye on my admit building, not admit building, my admit button. Obviously, still haven't had enough coffee this morning. But let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go to Mr. Bill Lennox first off.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So many familiar faces. I'm Bill Lennox, and I wear a couple different hats in the community. I'm on the Six Rivers Dispute Resolution Board. I'm also on the North Central Public Health District Board. And fortunately for me, I'm also been participating on the Chapel Committee with Julie and others to try to figure out ways to come up with some solutions to helping make the chapel a viable community place for people to come. So it's good to be here today.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate you joining us. Scott McKay.
Good morning, everyone. Scott McKay. I'm a volunteer for Circles of Care, which is in kind of a hiatus with still looking for a new community liaison to take my place, but all of our volunteers are continuing to support the folks that have been matched with. And so we're still active, but we're not taking on anyone new. So, and thank you. And I had the opportunity to be at, oh no, never mind, wrong church. Think about St. Paul's, the actual church, not the historical one. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Corliss Marsh.
Morning, everyone. Corliss Marsh. I'm with Habitat for Humanity and the library and the Senior Center. And coming up at the Senior Center on November 7th is the Ageless Awards. And so we do this every year and we honor seniors. So that's it for me.
All right. Thank you, Corliss. Mr. Mike Wacker.
Good morning, everyone. I work with Scott with Circles of Care, and he's done a wonderful job. It's going to be hard to replace Scott. He's on top of it. And also, this is almost exactly a year that Bob Pollock has started managing the museum. And if you haven't been up there in the last year, it's a totally different museum. Focus is more on the fort as being a fort and how important it was in the 1800s. So anyhow, go to Fort Dalles Museum.
One of our other fantastic and unique historic legacies in town. Thank you, Mike. Commissioner Brady. Bill, you are muted, sir.
There we go. Trying to get my set up here. Good morning, everyone. Phil Brady, Wasco County Commissioner.
Anything to report from a county perspective, Phil?
Today we'll be voting for a replacement for Senator Bonham, who resigned. The "we" is a little complicated. It's the county commissioners of the counties in District 52. That's Clackamas, Hood River, Wasco, a little bit of Multnomah, and the voting is proportional to the number of citizens in that part of the county covered by 52. Clackamas County gets the majority of the votes, and the candidates are Christine Drazen, John Brown, and Jeff Helfrich. So that'll be decided today.
Okay. Will that be decided today by all concerned, or is it solely by Wasco?
All concerned, there's a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
Is it a Zoom meeting? Is it an open meeting?
I'll look that up and drop it into chat.
Thank you, Phil.
Okay, thanks.
Tanya Brumley.
Good morning, Tanya Brumley, Northwest Natural.
Thank you, Tanya. Oh boy, we've got a lot of people on board here. I like this. Patricia Fowler.
Good morning. I'm sorry to say I've lost my camera on this, but it's nice to see all of you. I have a long, and my husband and I have a long history with St. Paul's, the chapel, and I'm new to the group, but I just decided this was a good place for me to be.
Welcome, Patricia. Bruno. Bruno,
Good
you
morning. Hi. Yeah, my name is Brian Engelbart. I go by Bruno. And I'm a newbie to the chapel committee and been into the Dalles for about 3.5, 4 years. And I do some volunteer bread and blessings and have worked with the Wall Dogs and some other fun stuff in town, including the chapel. Yeah.
Cool. All Dogs was a fantastic project.
Yeah, it was great.
Oregon Encyclopedia is going to be having a profile on that before too long here. Dave Peters.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Dave Peters, Columbia Cascade Housing, Mid-Columbia Housing Authority. My boss is going to be speaking in a week or two, so I'll let her talk more, but we have 10 projects in the pipeline for development. 149 are under construction right now, units, and 216 or more are in some form of development, whether we're applying for money or formalizing more. We have the money in place, we're just formalizing other things. So quite a few things are happening here. And like I said, Karen is going to be giving an update. I think it's next week, but if not, then it's the week after. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Vesta Smith.
Good morning. I'm Vesta Smith and I'm retired and I'm just here to always learn a little bit about what's going on in my community. I love that church. I've only been in it a couple of times over years and years ago, so it'll be interesting to hear what all is going on with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vesta. We have a Zoom user, and you look familiar, but I don't. Go ahead. Oh, and you're muted. You're muted. Oh, there you are. Oh, you're still there. There you go.
Okay. I'm Gretchen Kimsey, and I apologize. I don't know how to get my name under my picture. So, but I'm here this morning as a part of the chapel committee for the historic St. Paul's Chapel. And I be the focus of the meeting. So we'll hear a lot from Julie and hopefully we can all chime in with thoughts and ideas. It's a wonderful building and, as you know, historic. So we're working to preserve it and to preserve it in its noblest condition. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And I
Mhm.
know there's a way to put your name on there, and the secret escapes me right now. I haven't done it in a while, but let's see if we can address that before the end of the meeting. Carla Wenzel.
Good morning. I also am one of the small but mighty committee members supporting the chapel. I'm also retired. This is my first meeting of this sort. So I'm here to support Julie and also see what else I can learn along the way. Thanks for hosting.
Thank you, Carla. Jerry Frazier, I think I've missed you up until this point.
Oh, I've been missed before, Dan. That's fine. I'm also on the chapel committee, and I'm pleased to say that's about all I do, except my little hobby farm out on Pleasant Ridge right now. So I'm not eligible to take any more assignments finally. Thank you.
Been a while, Jerry. Good to see you. Nathan Wilson.
Hi, everyone. I'm a reporter with Columbia Gorge News. Just here to listen in this morning. Thanks.
Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate that. And we have Hank. Hank, are you plugged in there, Hank? I love the background. If not, we will you can join in later or put your contact information, and actually I'd invite everybody to do that, name and contact information in the chat box, so we have that on the recording. Again, this is the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce Community Affairs, and our guest is Julie Reynolds with St. Paul's Chapel, and we're going to be turning it over to Julie right now. Talking with Julie earlier, questions are welcome during the presentation. Raise your hand or put your question in the chat box. I'll be keeping an eye on that. So Julie, you are muted right now, but go ahead and unmute yourself. I'd ask everybody else to mute themselves, and take it away, Julie.
Hey, I'm gonna share a screen. Is that gonna work?
Yes, it will.
I need to do that. Okay.
It's coming in now.
Okay, well, good morning. I'm going to be talking to you today about historic St. Paul's Chapel on 5th and Union Street. And I'm going to open the PowerPoint. I'll be behind the PowerPoint because it seems to take up the entire screen. There it is. Can you see it now?
Yep, it's all good, Julie.
Okay. This drawing of the chapel was made by Jean Hillis, an artist, art teacher, a historian. She donated to us the right to use her image, and we're really happy to do that. Jean was famous locally for her petroglyph rubbings, and she is the subject of one of the murals downtown. In this presentation, I'll be switching back and forth between talking about the building as a chapel and as a church. It was built as the Episcopal Church in the Dalles, but after our new church was built up by the hospital in 1962, people began referring to it as Old St. Paul's, or the chapel, and now we're officially calling it Historic St. Paul's Chapel. Historic St. Paul's Chapel at 5th and Union was the original Episcopal church in this community, and it is the oldest church building in the Dalles. Although Episcopalians aren't the oldest congregation, because the Methodists and Roman Catholics and Congregationalists all got here earlier. One reason it's the oldest building is because it survived the terrible fire of 1891 that started on the east side of town and burned 17 blocks of the downtown. The fire stopped right at Union Street, sparing the chapel across the way. So there were many fires back then in those days. And there is some information in our historical records that the chapel was actually built against the bluff to try to protect it. And you can't see a whole lot behind this picture, but there's a large stone cliff behind it. These photos were taken over the years as changes were made to the building. In early February of 1875, Bishop Morris bought the property at 5th and Union with gold coin as a prospective site for the new church. He also put up $500 and said construction could begin as soon as that amount was matched. The intrepid parishioners who'd been meeting elsewhere as early as 1855, when the first Episcopal service was held up at Fort Dalles, started raising money. And one of their biggest fundraisers was a strawberry festival. It brought in about $600. We don't have an image of the original 1875 structure, but it had a pretty small footprint. It was about 22 feet by 40 feet. And it sat back a bit from Union Street with a covered porch and steps on the east side, kind of what you see there in the 1880 photo in the upper left hand. The architect, an Episcopal priest and botanist named Reuben Nevius, built a number of similar churches around Eastern Oregon and the Pacific Northwest. The architectural style is Carpenter Gothic, an offshoot of the Gothic revival movement in the Victorian era. Carpenter Gothic is characterized by the use of buttresses on the outside and pointed arches and wooden construction, which was an economical adaptation for rural areas. Traditional Gothic was built with stone. So construction on St. Paul's started in May 1875, and it took about 8 months. The exterior was board and batten made of wide vertical planks joined together with thinner strips of wood. And of course, there was no insulation. The church, with all its contents, including stained glass windows and furniture, cost about $2,500, which would be $73,000 in today's money. The church building has been modified several times. In 1880, a vestry room was added to the north side, which functioned as a meeting / study / sleeping area for the circuit rider clergy who served the congregation in the early years. And you can see that in the 1880 photo right there. Can you see the pointer on the screen? Or not? Maybe not.
Yes, we can see
Yes.
that.
Okay, just checking. In 1890, the original board and batten exterior was covered with horizontal drop siding, and the porch steps were reoriented towards the north. So look at the triangular arrangement of small round windows above the church door in the 1880 and 1890 photos. I'll come back to that later, but I wanted you to have an idea of how the original east side of the church looked, because the 3 windows are now displayed in a different kind of way. And notice that there's no bell tower in these earlier photos, even though we know the church had a bell. So there's an interesting story about how the bell arrived in the Dalles. It had been manufactured in New York in 1883 and sent on the Queen of the Pacific around Cape Horn and up the coast to the Columbia River. And there the ship foundered on the bar. And it's said that the structure that supported the bell went overboard, but it doesn't say what happened to the bell at that point. But anyway, it was retrieved and brought up the river to its destination. So we've always been curious about where the bell was mounted. And our, what's his name? Powell, is it David Powell, who wrote the book on Reuben Nevius, ponders the same question, because it isn't any place that we could find. It was in the vestry minutes, but there's no other record of it. So it wasn't until I was looking at the Sanford insurance maps that were made after the 1891 fire that I discovered that the bell had been mounted in a wooden structure high up on the rocky bluff behind the chapel. So you can see where it says Episcopal Church, and there's the study. And I've circled the location where the Sanford insurance people marked where the bell was. So I wonder who had to climb up there and ring it on Sundays. We've looked. Jerry Fraser climbed up to look around, but he didn't find any remnants of a structure on top of that rock. So the horizontal red line at the top of the map on the right indicates where Union Street is, and that's where the fire stopped. So the close-up map on the left extends from right on top of that red line at the top. There were several renovations of the building over the years, but the most extensive one was in 1900, which added a basalt foundation, a bell tower, and a transept or crossing where the choir and the organ were located. And the building was expanded both to the east and the west, which brought it right out to Union Street. And you can see that Union Street wasn't paved. And when I've been reading about the history of the Dalles, Union Street was kind of a natural path up from the river, and people referred to it as the cut. It's kind of an interesting thing. And here you can see the rocky bluff behind the church a bit better. To the right, on the right side of the church, which is the north, it extends. the bluff doesn't come over that far. You can see it's mostly on the left-hand side. And notice the Celtic cross at the apex of the roof. It shows up in photos up to 1980 or 1932. But it's not there in the 1975 photo, and that's the next photo we have in the sequence. We haven't found any that were between 32 and 75. So maybe it came down. It's not there now. So maybe it came down during a re-roofing project. Who knows? But at some future time, it would be nice to replace that. And Gretchen's daughter, Megan, would like to see that happen, and that might be a fundraiser time down the road. Inside the chapel, you can see the interior board and batten construction, which was added in the 1900 renovation. The pews are fixed in place, 10 on each side. And at the front of the church is the altar, which was made by the architect Ruben Nevius. The side lancet windows are original to the building. When the church was being constructed, those windows weren't there until the last minute of the construction process. And when they arrived on the very day of the planned first service, they were too small for the openings. So some hastily called parishioners got together to work on that problem, and the windows were fitted in place just in time for the first service, which was on Christmas Day of 1875. And Gretchen has revived, or maybe it was when Rustin, the bishop, was there, of having a Christmas Eve service in the chapel, which commemorates that first service. So besides the lancets, there are other stained glass windows that were original to the chapel. The one I'm going to show you next is the navy window, and you can see it straight ahead down the aisle behind and above the altar. This window was popularly called the navy window. It was given by the parents of J. Horace Eaton, who died in 1865 at the age of 16, while he was attending the United States Naval Academy. The sword and the Bible in the upper section are symbols of St. Paul, and the lower section contains an anchor with the initials of the U.S. Navy around the anchor, USN. And there are around in the larger part are 4 monograms of the Holy Name, including one that visitors often interpret as the Star of David, the one in the lower right-hand side. A little research uncovered a long history for that hexagram, spans many religions. Was used very widely in some form or other, the 6-point star. But in this context, it's called the Star of Creation, with the 2 triangles representing the interconnectedness of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, the Trinity. So the navy window originally had natural light, but when the parish hall, Remington Hall, was built in 1931, the kitchen covered it up behind. So currently there's artificial light behind the window, but it doesn't display as well as it could, although this is a pretty good picture. But again, that's another project for the future to put some better and more permanent lighting behind the navy window. In the south transept is the round St. Cecilia window, portraying the patron saint of music and musicians, seated at an organ. The window was given in 1912 by Naomi Pike Schenck in memory of her niece and namesake. So Naomi, who donated the window, was a 3-year-old survivor of the infamous and tragic Donner Party wagon train that got stranded in the Sierra Nevada in 1846. And there were a few survivors, and she was among them. She ended up in the Dalles, married to a banker, John Schenck. St. Cecilia is my favorite window, and it was probably made by the Povey Brothers Studio of Portland, although it's not signed because they didn't sign their early windows, and we don't have any records. But it's very much in the kind of classical style that was one of their hallmarks. And I just think it's a beautiful portrayal. It's very beautifully made. So here are the three windows that were originally in that triangular shape above the door. Right now they're set in a row on the south wall. From left to right, they represent the resurrection, pictured as a phoenix rising from the flames, and the incarnation, the Lamb of God, and the atonement, the pelican feeding her young. And the story is she was plucking her feathers from her breast and feeding her blood to the young to keep them alive. So what's really neat about these three windows is that they're right at eye level. And so you can look at them pretty closely. And that's a very interesting thing to do to see not only the design, but the construction. So during the major renovation that went on in 1900, that triangular arrangement was replaced in the east wall by the large Lily's window, which we also think was made by the Povey Brothers studio in Portland. And this is the window that draws the most attention from our visitors. It really dominates the entire east wall. So the red bordered oval at the bottom reads, "Consider the lilies," which is a reference to Matthew 6, 28, 29. "Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these." So that's the verses. But notice the misspelling of lilies. You can see that in the smaller rectangle on the right. I pulled that out. It's from the side, but it's spelled Lillies. And I've always wondered how that happened. I don't imagine it could have been deliberate. But anyway, it's just kind of an interesting part. So in the large window, there are faceted purple jewels that represent grapes. They really show up in the sun because of the facets. And up above with the chalice, that is very, very deep red glass. And when the early morning sun's coming through, it just glows. So I've got a long history with the chapel. I was baptized there as an infant in 1949, and my family drove in from Grass Valley for church every Sunday. My two sisters and I sang in the junior choir, and in the morning when the sun was shining through the Lily's window, it was glorious. I was always sorry the congregation had to sit with their backs to that window. Another thing I remember is that there was a commercial laundry business operating in the house just to the north of the chapel, and that house is still there. It's made into apartments. And the laundry business just sent up clouds of steam. And there was also a billboard on top of the house. It wasn't very aesthetic next to our beautiful chapel, but it was there. And you know, the boilers are still in place. And you can, if you look through the parish hall windows to the north, you can see them there. As a post-World War II generation started having families, church attendance increased, and it became clear that the chapel was too small to serve well. It was right on a main street. There was no parking, and the church was fairly small. So when the congregation moved to the new building in 1962, the chapel was left empty. In 1966, Colonel Lewis Nichols, a St. Paul's parishioner and a very active community guy in the historic activities in the Dalles, he opened a museum of natural history and geology in Remington Hall. And with his own money, he helped to maintain the building. So that's what went on from about 1966 until 1980, when Episcopal Bishop Rustin Kimsey moved the diocesan offices to Remington Hall. And it was that area was then converted to office and hospitality space for the use of the diocese and its visitors. The chapel's interior at that time was renovated for worship use. In 1990 to 91, the chapel was restored to its 1900 appearance. Sometime in the 30s, it had been, the exterior had been stuccoed with gray stucco and black lines drawn on it to kind of approximate what basalt would look like. Just looking at the photographs, it wasn't a really great effort. But when it was restored, it brought it back to the horizontal lap siding, and it looks much better. St. Paul's Episcopal Chapel gained National Historic Landmark status in 1986 as part of the Dalles Historic Commercial District. And so it's protected under landmarks use. So the chapel had been lightly used in recent years and was not the main church. So the Episcopal Diocese of Eastern Oregon decided it should be sold. And that spurred several of us who had long associations with the chapel to form a planning committee to see if we could find a way to make it a viable, self-supporting entity. So I'm going to close the PowerPoint now and talk about what we've been doing. Okay. I'm going to stop the screen share.
Up share.
Okay, that work?
Yes, Julie.
Okay, so some of the things we've got going on are a Wednesday noonday prayer and discussion service that's now drawing as many as 10 people on a Wednesday at noon. The local Quaker group uses a chapel in Remington Hall on Sundays twice a month. We've had weddings, celebrations of life, and recently a baptism. In fact, in September, we had a baptism and a wedding on the same day. That was kind of an unusual situation, but it worked. This last summer, Remington Hall was a site of a speech therapy day camp for children and families who use augmentative or alternative communication medical devices for primary communication. The speech therapist who approached us to use that space knew that these medical devices were the families had these, but were given no training in how to use them. And so her effort was to get that to happen, and I think it was pretty successful. I hope we can do that again. We've also had lectures in the chapel. One was on the history of the Bonneville Dam. The Wasco County Historical Society sponsored that. And Tom Connolly, retired anthropology professor from the University of Oregon, has talked 2 different years on archaeology, once on trails, pioneer trails over the mountain towards the valley. And this year he gave 2 lectures on archaeology at Fort Rock, because he's done some research down there. We've also had a very well-received cello and bass concert that filled us up to our legal seating capacity of 92 people. And Brian, here, Bruno on the screen, was the person who brought that to us. And we hope that that can happen again, because the acoustics in the chapel are really very good. And the setting is conducive to that kind of a concert. So we knew people were interested in seeing the inside of the chapel. So we trained docents to give tours this summer. When the farmers market was on, there were a lot of people downtown, and we figured that would be a really good time to draw people in. And it was pretty successful. We were getting 10 or 12 people every Saturday. And over we heard, "I've lived here all my life and never been in this beautiful building." So we're really happy that a lot more of our community is getting to see what the chapel is like. And it may help us in our efforts to keep it going and make it viable. So members of our chapel planning committee include Episcopalians, Quakers, and interested townspeople. We number about a dozen, and we would welcome anyone to join us who has an interest in helping us plan for the future of the chapel. We're meeting monthly, and we'd love to hear new ideas. So Currently, our plans for the future include applying for grants to do some maintenance and repair work. The building's in pretty good shape, but there are some things that need to happen, like gutters being put back on, and we might be able to get a grant from the state to repair a stained glass window up in the bell tower that needs to be re-leaded, things like that. And we've been letting people know that the chapel's available for weddings and other events that are appropriate to the space. Coming up on November 15th from 10 to 4, we're going to be hosting an art show in Remington Hall. On December 5th, there will be a concert. Victor Johnson approached us about this. All that I know so far, Gretchen may know more, is that two women will be singing probably folk music on a Celtic bend. We're talking about holding meditative Taizé services during Advent, and we'll probably be collaborating with some of the other churches in town. And on December 6th, the chapel will be participating in the Portland State Archaeology Roadshow out at the Discovery Center. This year's theme is art and craft. It's not a selling point, but a place to do demonstrations, and we've been invited to just showcase the chapel and talk about it. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation. And so what have I missed, chapel planning people, as far as our past activities and potential future things? Be sure to unmute yourself, and I'm going to mute myself, so I'll get off the screen.
That was wonderful, Julie. Can people hear me?
Yes. Yes.
It was very complete and interesting. I always learn more when I listen to you talk about history. There will be this concert on December 5th that's a Friday, beginning at 7 p.m. And it will be Catherine Clare. Julie mentioned that. She's been here before in the Dalles. The emphasis will be finding the light within in the darkness. And it's fiddle music, violin music, it's voice, beautiful. I think it'll be a lovely evening. And tickets will be available soon. That will be Friday, December 5th, 7 p.m. The Taizé services are going to be on Sunday from 4 to about 5. If you aren't familiar with Taizé, it's a community in France and a community of Christian brothers. And the music is very meditative and repetitive. There will be a bit of scripture, a lot of silence, and some lovely music. So the 4 Sundays of Advent, the public is welcome to come 4 p.m. One correction, Julie, is that the Christmas service is not Christmas Eve, but Christmas morning, to commemorate the first Sunday that there was worship in that space. And it will be at 10 a.m. on Christmas morning. Other than that, Julie, you've covered it beautifully. Thank you so much.
This is so fascinating. I did not know that the building had been up for sale. And of course, that opens the opportunity to do exactly what you're doing, to make it go forward in a different with basically a whole new way of approaching things. But that same challenge, St. Peter's, I know, was almost demolished. The Civic Auditorium was almost demolished. There's such a dangerous period when that occurs. So congratulations to you for having the foresight to create this and to not walk away from it. Thank you. We have a couple of questions. Corliss in the chat asked, is the building available for rent?
We can't rent it. It's a religious edifice, so we ask for donations. That's how we work it. And I see Phil has his hand up, but I don't know how to let him in.
Go ahead, Phil.
I'm curious, how was the building heated? And I imagine it may have gone through different stages.
Originally, I must have been wood heated, but maybe it was coal because people used that in the early days. And towards the end of the Victorian era, they dug out underneath the foundation to make a basement. And there was oil, there's an oil tank under there. So they had oil heat at one point. Jerry might know more about it because he's done a lot of looking around down there, but that's how it was heated. And now it's electric.
Yeah.
We actually have a heat pump and air conditioning in the summer.
That's great. You mentioned Colonel Nichols. I was a member of the 4-H club when he was the chair, leader of that club, and we met there in is it the Chancery part of the building? He had a large collection of rocks and minerals and took us out on great adventures into Wasco all the way down to Clarno, searching for, got me interested in geology.
That's wonderful. He had a bent towards paleontology. I was always scared of him because he was so formal and I was just a kid at that point.
He put up with kids. You can't.
Julie, another question in the chat box, and I would have a related question. How can people donate? And my follow-up question to that would be, have you established a 501c3 nonprofit?
Well, we are a 501c3 nonprofit by virtue of being a religious organization.
Okay.
And to donate, people can leave money when they come to the church. We have a donation box, or if they want to write a check, it could be sent to 1805 Minnesota. That was on that last slide I had up. It's our main church address, but with chapel in the memo line. Does that answer that question? Or
It does. So the church still owns the building.
yes, actually, in the Episcopal tradition, everything is owned by the diocese. So it's very hierarchical. And so anytime anything happens with property, it has to go through the diocese.
Okay. So if people want to use the building for an event, they can donate and they would be able to use okay, good.
Yeah, we'd be very happy to talk to them about that.
All right. Other questions around the table?
Yeah, this is Mike Wacker. Julie, is there a website or anything where you could see the schedule of events coming up?
Trish just asked the same question, and it's one of the things we really need to work on. Carla is our point person on that. She's still on I'm not sure if she's still there, but she knows how to do website kinds of things, and it will probably, since this is a ministry of our larger church of St. Paul's Episcopal Church, there'll be the chapel website will probably be attached to our main website, which hasn't been kept up very well in recent years, but obviously social media and having things online is what we need to do.
And to follow up on that one, please also keep the Dalles Chamber community event calendar in mind. We try to get that central resource. So I always like to give that a plug as well. And the newspaper. I don't want to neglect that. We have Nate on the call here.
Mm-hmm.
Trish, you have a question.
Yes. Julie, is the chapel on the National Register?
Yes, it is. It's part of the historic commercial district of downtown the Dalles. And I talked to Joy Sears at SHPO, which is a state historic property thing, and asked her if it would be advantageous to us to get a direct listing. And she said, no, this would be all we needed to do. So that's a good recommendation.
Yeah. There are grants available for historic churches that you might want to check in. Save America's Treasures is one of them.
Okay, thanks. That's one I didn't know about.
Yeah, no, I'm with the Weston Area Development Association over on the east side, and our purpose is historic preservation. So I'd be happy to help you with find out about grants and stuff. I'm connected with a few national organizations.
Thank you, Trish.
And Julie, Trish has her phone number in the chat box. And I want to go back to the chat box. There are several items in there. But Bruno, let's turn it over to you for a second. You've got your hand raised.
Hi, yeah. Hey, Julie. Thanks for that talk. That was just fascinating. Always learning something new from you all the time. But I just wanted to let you, Gretchen, and Jerry, folks on the committee, and anyone here on the chat who happened to miss the first cello concert. I spoke with Dieter last week, and they cannot wait to get back. So when we have our next committee meeting, we need to nail down a new date because they loved it, had a great time, and I know we had a wonderful turnout. So looks like we'll be doing it again.
Thanks, Brian. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Julie, Trish had mentioned some funding resources. I wanted to add to that the City of the Dalles grant program. If you're not aware of that, that's another one to look at. And I'd be happy to connect you with Josh over there or Jake.
Thank you. That's another good resource. Will all of these things and the chat be available after we're finished? Because I can't take notes that fast.
They will be. The recording for all of this will be on the chamber website, including the chat box. But I'm also keeping it. It automatically sends me the entire chat, and so
Great.
I'll have that, Julie, and I can forward that to you.
Thank you.
Other questions for Julie? Julie, I've got one more that I wrote down a whole bunch of questions here. Are you on the cruise ship schedule? So when the cruise ships are in town, do they stop by and visit?
No, unfortunately, the cruise ship, the buses that take people around from the cruise ships have specific places that they go, and they're on like a 15-minute schedule. Mike would probably know more about that than I because he's a docent up at the museum at Fort Dalles. The smaller downtown historic places like the original courthouse and so aren't on that schedule. People go to the Neon Sign Museum. Most of them go to the Discovery Center because that's a really big draw. And yeah, it would be really great if maybe we need a kind of coalition of these smaller historic organizations.
There was some discussion about a year ago about trying to organize a kind of a spin-off from the cruise ships using the visits, but to focus more on structures like this. We have so many unique resources in the Dalles, and this one definitely needs to be on that list, Julie. I do want to leave time to go back to a couple of important items. Oh, go ahead, Phil. Go ahead.
No, go ahead because I was going to go off on a tangent.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to capture a couple of things, make sure that you're looking at the chat box on a follow-up here. Commissioner Phil Brady, you had put information about the selection of Senator Bonham's successor. That is a public meeting, and you see you included the link. That's 1 p.m. today, virtual meeting. So that is a public meeting. And see the link in the chat box. And then also, Phil Mosher, you had included a couple of tours coming up. I'm not familiar with the first one, 608, but I certainly am the Bennett Williams House. That's the big Victorian at the foot of Trevitt. I happen to know a little bit of history on that because I wrote a feature story on Judge Bennett. He was I believe maybe on the Oregon Supreme Court. My memory is
he was.
Yeah. He was a school superintendent back when there was a county-wide school district with about 100 or more individual districts. And Roger's on the call, and he can correct me on my historical fading memories there. But there's quite a history to that. So tours of both of those are coming up.
608 West 6 is the address of the Williams Bennett House.
Okay. You had mentioned 2 guided historic. What was the other one?
Well, no, it's 2 tours of the same home, one at 1 o'clock and one at 2 o'clock.
Ah, cool. All right. Got it. Thank you, Phil. There was another one.
I did have a question for Julie. I helped the congregation sell the parsonage a few years ago, and have been watching to see if anything has happened on the renovation there. Do you know by chance if that is ongoing?
Yes, it is. I guess it's, I guess I probably shouldn't say who the owner is, but they're associated with the Discovery Center and
Yeah.
very actively working on it inside. They've planted
Oh.
trees outside, you may have noticed, along
Yeah.
Union Street.
Yeah.
And I would say as time allows, the owner and his father are working on it very
Oh,
well.
that's wonderful.
That's
Oh,
great.
that's
And thank you for helping us. That was for people who didn't know, that was the rectory that is next to the chapel, and was very hard to, I mean, it caused a lot of discussion in our congregation about what to do with it, but we ultimately decided that it would be best for us to sell it. So that's what happened. And thank you for
That's
doing
wonderful to hear. Thank you.
Very good. I'm looking, we had some late arrivals on the meeting today, so I want to go over, let's see, first off, any other questions on the chapel? Julie, again, fascinating. One of the most interesting, I'll tell you, I've been doing this a long time, and this is totally cool to learn about that building.
I'll just throw in one thing here, Dan, and Lou Nichols would appreciate this thought that geology is destiny. The bluff that the chapel is built into, it's connected to a major geologic structure on the Dalles. If you go out to junction of Highway 30 and 97, that cliff there is kind of reddish rock with black rock all jumbled together. That's pillow basalt where lava flowed into water. There was a lake here. If you drive west along Highway 30, say by the Highway House restaurant, you can see that still same formation, and it continues through the Dalles, and it's behind the state building on the other side from the city park, underneath the city park, and also in under the cliff where the historic St. Paul's is. It continues all the way, and we don't see it as much, but it comes out again in Hood River, on the west side of Hood River when you're driving 84, just leaving past west of Hood River. There's a large extent of that same pillow basalt, and it's easily eroded, so it made cliffs when the Brett's floods came through.
Talking about history, we can go back about 12 million years on that one, as I reckon. That's interesting. Thank you, Phil. Jacob Anderson from the city has joined us. Jake, any announcements from the city?
So just a reminder that we have an informational meeting on the 30th coming up on our downtown projects at 5:30. It will be recorded, but everyone should either be here in person or get online and watch what we have for updates. It'll primarily be about the parking impacts and the lane restrictions and what we have going with First Street, Federal Street, and the Weber Street projects.
Thank you, Jake. Jake, would you mind putting that detail in the chat box as well, so we have that?
Can do.
Great, thank you. Roger, you had joined. You had some information, I think, in the chat. Any information from the Columbia River Gorge? Roger, you muted, sir.
Okay, how's that sound?
There we go.
All right. Columbia River Gorge Commission is coming up with a very important meeting on November 13th, or 12th rather, right after. Normally they meet on Tuesdays. This will be a Wednesday because of the Veterans Day holiday. And this is the one where we're going to make some very specific requests to change a number of the current management plan, which details what people can and can't do after a natural disaster to rebuild their home. It's going to be a whole lot more lenient, and we're fast tracking this as fast as possible because it has to go to the Secretary of Agriculture for concurrence. But I was very pleased at the September meeting that we voted unanimously to go ahead with this project. Now we have to do the formal thing. We've had 30 days of public comment, and that'll be happening coming up. So.
Quickly, what time does the meeting start?
It starts at 8:30 in the morning. and it's going to be pretty well packed.
It's in person?
No,
No,
because of funding cutbacks by the Washington legislature that the Oregon legislature had to match, they are only able to meet online except maybe once or twice a year in person. The problem is that they don't have a permanent meeting place. They move around. And since the requirement after COVID to have a virtual meeting as well, they have to rent the equipment every time, set it all up, 13 microphones plus another 4 or 5, plus a whole bunch of stuff that's very expensive. So that's why they don't do in-person meetings anymore.
Well, Roger, would you put detail on that one? Link if available in the chat box?
Yeah, we'll do.
Good, thank you. We are winding down on the hour here, folks. I'm looking around to see if I've missed anyone. Carolyn, you've joined in. Organizational announcements. Go ahead. You're muted, Carolyn. Still muted. Nope, still muted. If you have anything to add, go ahead and put it in the chat box. And let's see. Hank, anything organizational or anything you'd like to add to the meeting?
No, just listening. Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
All righty.
And Dan, real quick, the Dementia Virtual Tour, the second day is continuing, well, today at St. Paul's Episcopal Church up there on 1805 Minnesota Street. And we had a nice turnout yesterday, and there are still open spots today. So anyone who's interested, it takes about a half hour. So just drop in and they will take care of you, and you'll be able to participate in the tour. And so basically there's an opportunity to experience what it's like to be living with dementia. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for including that information as well. And Roger, you have the information on the Gorge Commission, and we will be going to the commission website. Very good. November 12th at 8:30. All right. Carolyn, I know you're still trying to get the audio going there, and I know exactly the frustration there. I struggle with it myself. If you'd like to include something in the chat box, you would be welcome to do so. We're winding it down. This has been a presentation on St. Paul's Chapel on Union Street. Beautiful historic building. And, you know, I just want to give a plug for all of the legacy buildings that we have in the Dalles. I think 7, 8, 9, 10 major historic sites. The Rorick House, the St. Peter's Landmark, the chapel, so many others, all with a unique story. So this has been an important discussion, I think, an exploration of this building. And again, congratulations on taking it forward. Julie, for your presentation. Everyone for joining us this morning. This has been the Dalles Area Chamber Community Affairs. I'm going to give you back about 1 minute of your day, and I wish you well for the rest of the week. Please, again, take a look at the chat or go to the Chamber website. This is recorded. The chat will be on there. And again, we'll see you next week, Thursday.